Hello, this is Daniel Peavy, and this is for my final project for FRIT 7235. So today I'll be using Google Classroom because it's the one that we use mainly for school, so it's the most easily acceptable, and it's the most easily accessible. So on this, what I have is 3 different lessons set up in Google Classroom. But I do have a pre-lesson for the students. So once they log in, they come to where it says Digital Citizenship. They'll click on this. They have this little Nearpod that they're going to do, but they also are provided notes. And on these notes, they're actually able to write on these notes. On the Nearpod, they'll click on the link. It'll take them to this Nearpod, in which they can go at their own pace on this. That way they can take their time. The first slide pretty much goes over a little bit of the 9 elements of citizenship. Have a video recording talking about this, and then pretty much talking to them how the main ones that we're going to be focusing on for today is dealing with digital communication and digital literacy. Here are some of the things that I highlight to them on key concepts for digital literacy. Let them know that in this class there's going to be a lot of critical thinking. You're going to need to have some proficient communication skills and have social and cultural understanding. And so with this is a bit of notes that they'll have to write down. Everything that is highlighted is to indicate for them these are the keywords that you need to write down on your notes. So as you see, switch over here, they'll write down each of the key concepts, and then here's the basic notes that they will have to write down. I try to provide visuals for them so they know which slide goes for which area. So we focus on this one, make sure that we don't have any cyberbullying while on Google Classroom and discussing with our peers and classmates. We'll continue on. Finally finishing up with digital citizenship video, kind of showing them what all it means to be a digital citizenship. And then I go in and I explain to my students the 12 principles in there, and I go into how each one will relate and how they can identify each of the 12 concepts. Alright, so that is kind of an idea for a precursor for the students to get them understanding, okay, this is how you're going to take notes, this is what things are going to look like. And then we move to our first lesson. So with this, I have notes. I kind of have these for the most part in order for the students that take the notes. I have this once again available for them to type on their computers if they would like to print them out. It's also accessible in that way. So these, as you can tell, are not fill in the blank notes, but more of kind of typing in. So when we go to our notes slide, in this, as you can tell, there will be a Pear Deck. When I go online, I'll have that added first thing for the students when they get on Google Meets is to join in through Pear Deck. I'll set it up to where it is teacher paced, so then I can make sure that we go over concepts a little bit more clear. But I open up with my learning target on what we'll be discussing for today, the main topic for today's discussion, and then a little bit of a do now, kind of a reference back to material that we talked about beforehand. So as we go through each slide, it kind of discusses certain things. This is part of what the students will write down in their notes. For this one right here, we have students that will have to read this concept, and then pretty much using the draw tab, they'll have to underline what the main concept for militarism is, and pretty much any examples that it says in the text. I will see this on my end as a teacher. As soon as I see that I have all the responses, I'll showcase this to the students, showing them. That way, if some students don't understand certain concepts or they may be kind of confused, they can see what their peers have underlined and kind of can pull from there. So give them some visual aids on what this looks like in the military, what certain items are in the military. And then this right here is what they'll write down. So anything that is in bolded, which is pretty much both of these key concepts, they'll write down in their notes. Militarism, once again, going through the same concept. Right here we do a little picture analysis where the students will have to write down what do they see in this image, what do they think is happening, and why. So a lot of discussion base. When they go to write down the notes, once again, just write down the highlighted material. So this is what the students will go through for each one of this. For this one right here, I put a map on the students' notes just so they can see it. If they decided to print things out, they can do it that way. If not, they can kind of use different assortments of apps for their notes, or if they want to color in these to have a better example. So, as we go through, give the students plenty of opportunities to check for understanding. So after writing down what is nationalism, I have them draw on their own computers what they think nationalism looks like here in the United States, asking them to give me an image, a picture, so on and so forth. So once we move through each one of these notes, I'm going to kind of fly through this for us. I do have an image that goes over the discussion of all the different causes of World War I and what is the final spark, which would of course be the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. So any students that are having trouble kind of following along, if they're more visual learners, they can kind of watch this, visual and audio. They can watch this and kind of get a basic understanding on how this leads to World War I. Let's get this right now. And in case any student is still having any difficulties, we have one last reading that goes over the key materials that they will need. Alright. So, as we get towards the end, I'll let the students, once again, kind of color so I can check for understanding, make sure they know the key players involved in World War I. And then, once students get finished with this, they'll then go to the causes of World War I. So, students will write down which of the 5 causes that they saw on the notes is the most important, labeling 1 the most and 5 the least. Students will then have to explain why they put these causes in this particular order. Next, the students will have to go to 4 other students and comment on theirs, whether they disagree or agree. So this article or this document right here is open for all students to post on. So each student would kind of just scroll down, putting their name and then their opinion pieces. And once a student has finished with their listing of the 5 and the reason why, the other student can say, yes, I agree with this because of blank, or hey, I found that it's interesting that you put this one as your number 1, where I put mine as number 3 or 4. So, ample opportunity for students to discuss amongst each other. Have a rubric that sets up what each one is for the students to see. So all based off of 5 and based off of how they respond to their peers. And then lastly, have a Google quiz that students will go. Lesson number 2 is a little bit more hefty in this extent, so they still have their notes. The first thing that students see when they get on to this Google Classroom is that there is a reading that they must do. So I give them 10 minutes to kind of go through this reading. In case the students have trouble getting to the link, I've also posted it right here for students to read, and it's accessible for them to write on to answer these 5 questions. So after 10 minutes or so, I'll then reconvene with the students, asking them to go on ahead. We'll go over our learning targets, success criteria. I then will play this video for the students that also goes over the Schieffelin plan and getting a basic understanding. And so on Pear Deck one more time, they will then answer this question after reading the article and after watching the video. I want them to describe in their words what this means, giving them ample time to answer this. And once again, once I see a lot of students start to answer, I'll pull up the responses to show to the students in case I see any students that are struggling. If I see one or two answers that are correct and the rest of the students are having trouble, I'll point out, oh, yes, C class, this right here, this is a good example of what's happening, and kind of go through. So, once again, everything that the students need to know is highlighted. Students will have opportunities to kind of circle doing a pre-assessment on a few things to get them involved in this. So for this particular lesson, we start with the course, how does World War I look like as the nations start to fight. We go over the different warfare. We have different images and graphic videos that show how bad the conditions were. We have particular excerpts drawn out from this time for students to read. As time goes about, they learn about the new weapons that are used during this time and how dangerous and deadly they can be. There's a few videos uploaded to show how pretty much these weapons had massive effects on the people and the soldiers. And at the end of this lesson, we go over why is this called, the lost generation. Talk about the death toll, and so on and so forth. So for this particular lesson, at the end of it, we have a GimKit quiz, and I let the students kind of determine which one they want to do first, if they want to do the quiz first, or if they want to do the activity/discussion. So I have the link up there in case the link on Google Classroom is not working, but for the activity for this one, I give it up for the students to kind of pick what they want to do. So, students may get into pairs or work by themselves. Students will research what it was like in the trenches during World War I. Students need to discuss these conditions of the trenches, conditions of the men and how they lived, types of weapons that were used, and what they did during their downtime, and how they lived during the different seasons. So I gave the students ample opportunities to pick which application they want to use. If they just want to write kind of more of a Google Docs, if they want to do PowerPoint, Canva, Powtoons, kind of leaving it up to them. But they have to choose between these 6 different types. So you have, if they want to do a presentation, they can do that. If they want to create kind of what a news article looks like, they want to write based off of the soldier's personal experience in a journal or diary. They want to write a poem, drawing potentially, or a letter back home. They kind of get to decide on that. So, I have it up right here. I have the different links in case they want to use these. I also give it up to the students if there's another link that I did not post that they really like to use. I'll always allow them to use that other application process for that one. So, they'll write this, and then for their discussion piece, they'll post what they have done on this assignment. Once they do, I'll re-release the different links for students to go on to their peers. And what they'll have to do is they'll have to look at 2 of their peers' research assignment and then give those peers feedback. See if there's anything that students didn't add that they think could have been important. Analyze what sort of comments and materials, research items that they talked about, and then different ways that these things apply during the time of the trench warfare. Lastly, we have Lesson 3. So once again, got the notes down here, consequences right above hand. This is the last one that we'll use Pear Deck for. And so as students go through this one, I have a simple timeline that the students will need to go through and try to deduct, what was the effects of U.S. entry into World War I. We talk about armistice, how it's now changed to Veterans Day. We talked about how this is the first time that women actually get involved in the war and how it makes changes for them afterwards. But then we go into the final mark, the Big 4, where they have to pretty much do a quick students of history research about these men. So I have provided belowhand in these boxes, what did all 4 of these men really want in their reasoning. So kind of give them a pre-understanding of the 4 men and what they wanted and all that. So they have a short reading dealing with this. And then this link also provided in case the other one was not working. And then we go into the 14 points, going through each one of these. Have an assortment of Pear Deck questions that the students will answer through. Talking about the different clauses and such. And then we go over this video that kind of talks about the Treaty of Versailles, about those 4 men and what all their goals were at the end of everything. Talks about how Germany wasn't involved. And so then we bring it back up, dealing with the League of Nations, discussing the issues of the League of Nations. Germany wasn't treated fairly in this, so on and so forth. And then for the last bit of this, we have our exit ticket, where the students will kind of write out to me, let me know that they fully understand this, and if they don't, we kind of go over, we break a few questions down. So, lastly, what they'll do is they get to go to this Padlet link that is provided above. They'll click on this, and while they're doing this, what they have to do is they have to either find an image, they have to either write a post or find an image that describes what it was like for the Treaty of Versailles. And so I leave this open for them because they get to pick, what country they want to view this as. Ultimately, no country is happy with this decision of the Treaty of Versailles, but they have to post which country this is the viewpoint for, and then they have to explain why. So if they're going to write a post about this, they have to say, okay, this is based off the eyes of, let's say, Germany, and this is why, or this is the eyes of Italy, and this is why, so on and so forth. So, once they post, they must click on 2 other peers to discuss their post, either agreeing or disagreeing, and stating why. And then, of course, lastly, I have a Google quiz for them to go on to and answer. But this is my presentation project. I hope you enjoy. I do have the link provided. Thank you. Have a great day.